Hey there everybody, Travis Bowman here. I'm a fingerstyle guitar player and retro video game nerd. Let's talk about some Super Nintendo controllers, specifically some third-party ones. This is from a company called 8BitDo. Now this is the SN30. This is a wonderful wireless controller for your Super Nintendo. Of course, the main idea with a controller like this is that you want to still play your Super Nintendo, but you don't want to be tethered to the console with those wires anymore. We live in the future, it's 2024, so it's time to start going wireless. And 2.4 gigahertz is likely one of the best solutions for wireless controllers. And Bluetooth is an option as well. But this right here is a really cool controller, and it doesn't really cost that much. It comes with a wireless dongle just for your Super Nintendo, and I've had a lot of playtime with this, and it feels very similar to your Super Nintendo controller. Now, despite the fact that this controller is awesome, and I've used it quite a bit and I highly recommend it, what I'd really like to talk about today is another solution of wireless controllers from 8BitDo. And that controller is the original Super Nintendo controller. So they're not selling legitimate Super Nintendo controllers. What they are doing is selling a device that replaces the PCB inside of your original Super Nintendo controller to allow you to use it as a wireless controller. It's Bluetooth now. A lot of people are going to have a lot of trouble with that. They're not going to like that. But spoiler alert, guys, it's actually really not that bad. I've tested both of these controllers with the SN30, which is 2.4 gigahertz wireless, as well as this new solution for your original Super Nintendo controllers. And I'm finding it very hard to differentiate between the two as far as the latency is concerned. So as far as a Bluetooth controller is concerned, you probably will deal with a little bit of latency, but as far as this one goes, not so much. I mean, I was really surprised. So I've been capturing a lot of video game footage lately for future videos, and I will sit at my computer with this controller with my original Super Nintendo, which is behind me over here. But I've got cables going all through my attic so I can get to my computer, to my capture card to capture video. And I've been sitting at the computer playing Super Nintendo games with this controller right here. And quite frankly, I'm just really surprised that not a lot of people are really talking about this, because this is actually a pretty cheap mod and it's incredibly easy to do. There's no soldering or anything like that. So imagine this Super Nintendo controller and what it's made out of. It's plastic, obviously, but I'm talking about the fact that it's kind of like a sandwich. You've got the top piece and the bottom piece, and they're held together by those screws on the back there. And the PCB, aka the thing that you press the buttons into, that's the meat in the sandwich. It's incredibly easy to take apart. You just need a screwdriver. This is an incredible achievement, and I'm super stoked about it, because not only are they doing this for the Super Nintendo, but they're also doing this for a lot of other different controllers, more modern controllers that you might not imagine that they would. So for example, the Nintendo GameCube controller, the Nintendo 64, and they've also got one for the Sega Genesis 6-button controller, and I'm definitely going to be doing a video on that one as soon as I get it in, because that's probably my favorite video game controller of all time. So this is what you are ditching when you do this modification. This is all that's inside of your Super Nintendo, except for, the buttons and stuff like that. Obviously, we're going to keep those for this mod. But this right here, it's just a little thin PCB attached to this controller cable there. So we're ditching the cable with this modification, and I'm really stoked to say that it's so easy, man. It is so easy to do. If you've never done console mods before or anything like that, this right here is a good, cheap first try. You'd have to really try hard to screw this up. Honestly, there's no soldering or any crazy anything. It's just taking it apart, taking this out, putting their new one in, and shutting it back up. It's really that easy. Really, the only thing that you kind of have to watch out for are these shoulder buttons right here. You kind of have to finagle those in place and make sure that everything is snug when you close it back up. And of course, before you screw it back in, make sure that it's working. It should be just fine, though. I mean, this is seriously one of the easiest mods I've ever done in my entire life. So going back really quickly to the 8BitDo SN30, this is the standalone wireless controller that 8BitDo makes. You can see you've got a micro USB charging port right there. The Super Nintendo only had a hole big enough for that cable to go through, so how do they combat that? It's actually really cool. So check this out right there. You can see this little nipple looking thing in the center of that controller It fully encloses itself around that hole, and you've got a little teeny tiny, it's almost kind of like a needle, like a little needle hole right there. And I'll get you a shot that's kind of closer up so you can see how this works, but it comes with a USB cable, and on the other end of that cable is that little needle port. And I'm sure it's got a specific name, I just don't know what it is right now, so apologies for that. But that's how they work that out. It's super cool. It's really smart, man, because you can do this with pretty much any controller as far as fitting, a charger in there to charge this thing. So I'm really, really stoked to have this. I'll be honest with you though, it took me a minute to get this to happen. And it's not because of the mod or anything like that or anything wrong with the product. It was my Super Nintendo controller. These things are really old, and the Super Nintendo is really not high up there on the list of consoles that have aged very well as far as the plastics are concerned. So I had 2 old Super Nintendo controllers laying around that I kept in Ziploc bags, away from all the dust and the grime and stuff like that. And I broke them trying to take them apart because these little screws in here, there are posts that the screws go in. And that plastic in particular can get very, very brittle, and trying to take those screws out, I ended up breaking 2 controllers. But it's no fault of 8-Bit Do, of course. So eventually what I ended up doing was I just went to Game Exchange and asked them if I could take a look at their Super Nintendo controllers. And I got into the bin and I found this one that was in fairly decent condition, and sure enough, everything works great. In fact, you can see that blue light right there. I've got my Super Nintendo on the screen back there, so I'm just gonna press the start button. And here we are. We're in Battletoads and Double Dragon, and you probably can't see it from back here, but it works just fine. You're just gonna have to take my word for it. As far as the latency and stuff is concerned, like I said, I'm dealing with the possible latency of a 100-foot HDMI cable going in my attic, coming down into my capture card, into my PC, and viewing that on my computer monitor. And I'm playing like really intensive action games such as Ninja Gaiden and Battletoads, stuff like that, where you really kind of have to be on your game, so to speak, when it comes to button inputs and stuff like that. I've never had any issues. And as far as pairing the controller too, this is one of the better experiences I've had with wireless controllers and getting them to pair with their respective receivers. I've had a lot of issues with that with the controllers in the past. So I took my console and set it on the table to get some B-roll shots for you guys, and I had to unplug everything. I unplugged the dongle and plug it back in and everything, and it paired right back up. I didn't have to press the button to get it to try to pair or anything. It just automatically knew, hey, there's the controller, we're gonna pair it up. The price of this is unbelievable as well. The PCB itself is like a $20 part. It's really not that expensive at all, but this is where they get you. Of course, if you want to use it with your Super Nintendo, you're gonna have to buy the dongle. The dongle is the same price as the PCB. So you're looking, after shipping and taxes and stuff like that, it's probably around 50 bucks, maybe even a little more. So that kind of sucks. I wish they would do a deal and pair it to where it's just a little less expensive if you buy both. But you know what, that's fine. But at the end of the day, this controller is probably the better of the two if you're looking for a deal, because I mean, this isn't the exact replica of the Super Nintendo controller, but it's pretty darn close, man. I mean, visually, the only thing are the buttons. You can see they're kind of laid out like that. They don't do this diagonal thing that the original controller does. I mean, if you got muscle memory for that original Super Nintendo controller, then that might bother you. But if not, like me, I was a Sega Genesis kid growing up, this controller is awesome. And they're brand spanking new, versus if you have to get a Super Nintendo controller from your childhood, you might need to get in there and do some cleaning, some deep cleaning to get all the dust and grime out of there. But, you know, if you're like me, you might dig that sort of thing. So at the end of the day, is it worth it to spend that kind of money on a PCB and a dongle just to be able to play your Super Nintendo controller, your original one, on your console wirelessly? I think it is. I don't know, man. I like this kind of stuff. I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, I gotta buy that. I just wanted to make this quick video to see what you guys thought about it, really, because like I said, I haven't seen hardly anybody talking about this, and they kind of just quietly dropped this a little while ago. And I was one of the first people that jumped on it the day that they had it available on their website. And I'm really glad that I did, because I've gotten a lot of use out of it. And you know, both of these controllers are great. And now that I have both of them, we've got a two-player situation here. And up until that point, like I said, I just had my old Super Nintendo controllers that were in bad shape, and then this SN30 right here. But now that we've got both of them in here, we can finally have a proper two-player Super Nintendo experience. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. What do you guys think about the SN30 as well as this brand new replacement PCB with the Bluetooth wireless capabilities for your Super Nintendo controller? I would really like to know what you guys think about both of those. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section below. Thanks for subscribing, and be sure to do that, by the way, because FYI, I actually did go ahead and get that same modification for the original Nintendo GameCube controllers, and I've got that already done. I just need to do the specific video about it. So if you guys want to check that out, make sure you subscribe. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.